Hello and welcome to Fresh Faced Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friends through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me as always is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
So, do we think H.P. Lovecraft would cringe in terror at all of the undersea monstrosities of this run?
Uh,
'Cause
maybe?
maybe
I don't know.
we're talking about Aquaman, people.
Aquaman! We got Aquaman today. Today we are covering an entire run on Aquaman in one episode. We have a 2-episode block of Aquaman episodes, but this is all one writer's run. This is the Jeff Parker Aquaman run, the immediate follow-up to the Jeff Johns run in the New 52. This is the volumes Sea of Storms and Maelstrom, taking us up to the big issue 40 push that the New 52 did for some reason. Which is mostly like a conversions thing. It's a whole thing. Don't worry about it.
It's the whole thing. It's the whole
Yeah.
thing.
But yeah, so that is what we're covering today. I guess let's jump into our non-spoiler section as always. Jacob, what is Sea of Storms and Maelstrom about?
So, Sea of Storms, for the most part, is about nothing. Like, I don't. We found. Look, I, I, I was kind of going in with low expectations. Nobody talks about this run. This is coming off of a weak ending of Jeff Johns' run. Sea of Storms feels like it's just filling time. Like, it's really interesting to compare this to Out of Time, which we read 2 episodes ago in our flash reading, because this book was a lot of setup,
Mhm.
almost too much setup. This volume almost wants to be set up, but it doesn't really set anything up. Like, it establishes some things and then just quietly reminds you that things are happening.
Hey, there is a killer Swamp Thing crossover at the end, though. It's so
This is
good. Come on,
true.
I
This
swear.
is
If you
true.
Okay, I was gonna say if you even say that the Swamp Thing crossover isn't good, I was gonna kill you. But
The Swamp Thing crossover is what's stopping this from being even lower in my estimations than it is.
I will
Because
also say the annual is good, but I know you didn't like it for some reason. So
the annual, I just didn't care. Um, it was weird. Um, Jeff Parker does this thing where he will set up an idea, set up a plot point, and then not really have it like progress at all until the back half of his run, like at all.
yeah, I
Um,
don't know what it is. I wonder. I shared this with you. We were talking about this as you were reading it. I wonder if like Jeff Johns' leaving the book was kind of sudden, and Jeff Parker was a really quick fill-in, and so when he started the run, he didn't really quite have a clear direction to go in, and he has one by the second half when we get into Maelstrom.
I mean, it's honestly the quality is in terms is literally is almost night and day. Like as soon as you start issue 32, which is the first Maelstrom issue, um, proper plus a couple of little prologue things before that from a couple of Secret Origins issues, it feels like we're actually doing shit. Like we have an
Yeah,
actual story to tell,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's mostly a solid. From start to finish a pretty solid story, a pretty fun story.
Mhm.
Doing
It is
some undersea
also
Atlantis things. I
Maelstrom is
really like what
also
it.
I was going to say Maelstrom is also a story that also influenced a big plot point in the 2018 Aquaman movie. Not to spoil it, of course. I won't say what it is. I'll say that for the spoiler section. But like, yeah, it's like it's it's decent enough to the point where like it was still used in some degree to some degree for adaptations. And it's good. Like it's genuinely just a good story. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but Sea of Storms, you could honestly probably skip. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there is very like there isn't a lot that happens in it. You could like jump pretty much from Death of the King straight to Maelstrom, and you won't have missed much.
But the Swamp Thing crossover, Jacob. The Swamp Thing crossover.
I'd say just pick up the Swamp Thing crossover then. Like, it is 2 issues. One of them isn't even an Aquaman issue.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a Swamp Thing issue, and it's by Charles Soule, and it's really, really good. That's all I'm trying to say. I don't know, whatever. Let's get into some Twitter questions, or I guess Twitter/Blue Sky questions, because we do have a Blue Sky question to talk about
yes,
too.
we do.
First off, for our friend Blue Sky, from our friend Andrew, at andrewdoingart.bluesky.social. I hate the way Blue Sky ads work, but Andrew says, "How does this run compare to the other Aquaman stuff you've read so far?" Well, I think we kind of covered that already in our non-spoiler section so far. Actually, okay, I guess specifically, how does it compare to what you often consider the weakest part of that run, like Death of a King? Like, coming straight off of that, how do you think this works?
I mean, Sea of Storm's definitely weaker. Like,
Interesting.
Sea of Storms, I think a lot of Sea of Storm struggles because it also, like, often lacks characterization outside of some very specific moments.
Mm.
Whereas Maelstrom, I'm like, oh, Maelstrom is great. It's moving forward. We have our characters doing things. We're kind of making almost a globe hopping adventure in a way, which is very fun. We have a fascinating villain for both halves of the story because it's technically 2 stories, but
Yeah, yeah,
they
sort of.
lead into each other. Um, but yeah, it's like, I mean, Maelstrom does not reach the highs of the John's run,
Mm.
but it's pretty good. It's a
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
solid 7 out of 10 book.
yeah.
Uh,
Um, Andrew also asks, are there any more Aquaman stories you plan on reading in the near future? The answer to that is a pretty definitive yes, considering next episode we're doing the Cullen Bunn run on Aquaman, and we're also starting Dan Abnett's Aquaman. After that, when we do get back to Aquaman eventually, we'll probably just continue with Dan Abnett's stuff, go straight into Rebirth. But yeah, that's about what our sort of Aquaman reading future looks like for the time being. Andrew then also says, when is the Clone Saga episode coming? Sorry I had to ask. It's been a while since I did. um, fucking Andrew.
I know
Yeah,
Marvel episodes, Joey.
I haven't played a lot of episodes, a lot of Marvel episodes, but I could say definitively, no, none of them are the Clone Saga. Fuck off with that.
Yet.
Yet for a
What?
very, 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 very long time.
Yes.
Anyway, over to actual Twitter. Let's see. We'll start off with Jamie. Sure, Jamie at Jamie_season7 says Aquaman with a picture of the fish people from the Underwater Menace from Doctor Who.
No, that's Chimera.
What?
That's Chimera.
Oh yes. Okay. Yes, you're right. You're
Yeah.
correct. Yep. Yeah, it's more accurate. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
then our friend Kian at Kian the Quark says, if Aquaman gets rejected by a potential partner and says there's plenty of fish in the sea, does he mean this figuratively, or does he go to have intercourse with fish? I think it could be either. It depends on how he's feeling. You know. I think it could happen either way. These are all of our Aquaman questions, by the way. This is all we got.
This is
And
it. This is all we
yeah,
got. Yeah.
this is it, and that's fine. There's not really a problem with that. I don't mind a shorter question episode. But yeah, notice how none of those questions were about the story we're covering today.
This is a
So
run again. People don't talk about it.
yeah, which is a shame because it's not necessarily bad. I don't think it's just
But again, you look up Maelstrom. It's good.
yeah, yeah. That said, I do find the stuff that comes like immediately after so much stronger. But I don't know, it's a fine enough run. It'll hold you over, and I guess that's kind of all it was trying to do for a while. But no, it's decent enough. I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about in non spoilers?
I hate to say it. There isn't a. Here's the thing. There isn't a whole lot to talk about. Half of this.
We theorized right before starting recording on this episode that it's probably actually going to be pretty short, despite covering 2 entire books in one episode. Because, especially for Sea of Storms, our first book today, there's just not going to be a lot to talk about. And that's fine. That's fine. It could be a shorter episode. That's okay. I would also like to just call out at this time, since we were talking about immediately pre-recording. Jacob also said, "Let's go under the sea." And I don't know. I found that ridiculously funny. You can attest. I just started fucking dying laughing when you said that.
You did. You did.
Because you said it in the style of the Little Mermaid, and I just found that funny. Anyway, let's get into our spoiler section. As always, if you're not sticking around for our spoiler section, sorry for the 10 minutes of episode you got today. But if you're not sticking around for our spoiler section, you already know what we're covering next time. It's going to be Exile and Out of Darkness next time. That it'll be the rest of the New 52 Aquaman run, Cullen Bunn and Dan Abnett, taking us through to the end. And beyond that, there's nothing really else to talk about. As always, just follow us wherever you want to follow us. Our link trees will be in the description below, wherever you want to follow us. And also subscribe to the channel, Blood Debit Studios. That means a lot. So let's get into this. This is consider this your official spoiler warning for Aquaman, Sea of Storms, and Maelstrom. Let's jump into Sea of Storms with Aquaman number 26 kicking us off here. So,
yeah, Aquaman number 26. You know what I will say? Paul Pelletier, who's on the art for most of this, is
yep, who stays on the art from the late John stuff.
Yeah, is a great artist. He's good.
He
We open with an important establishment of that there's a group of scientists called Triton Base who are doing some deep sea dives for some
I did also want to
mysterious.
say. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say that we have another artist on this on some of these issues here in the form of Nito Diaz, who I've recently been reading with some of his art in X-Men by Jed McKay for Fresh Face Solos. So, he draws a great beast. That's mostly been my praise of him because it's mostly because I don't like Ryan Stegman's beast, and so when it does switch to Nito Diaz, I much prefer his beast. But anyway, yeah, sorry. You're right. Yes, underwater base. Looking into weird goings on under the sea, and they get attacked.
Fauna.
What's up?
We can say this is the Kraken. They get attacked by the Kraken.
Mm-hmm.
They won't call it the Kraken for a while, and they spell it weirdly, but it's the Kraken. In Amnesty Bay, dude's looking for Aquaman.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot find it. And
yep. Meanwhile, Aquaman is doing some undersea research into alongside Mira. They're working with some human divers here as well. This is all sort of like, obviously following up on the end of Death of a King with Aquaman and Mira trying to like connect with the surface more. We then also catch up with Atlantis and have Aquaman being questioned by his fellow Atlantean advisors, who are all questioning his connection with the surface. Not all of them, but, the idea is there's some discourse among his advisors and people that he works with politically in Atlantis. A lot of these early scenes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The only scene it establishes, hey, there's a group of Atlanteans that don't like that they're having to communicate and work with the surface, and they are up to things.
Yeah, and it's not a bad it's not a bad way to start off the first issue. Like it is Jeff Parker doing some important groundwork here. He's just giving the state of things at the time for the time being, which isn't bad. It's not a bad thing to do.
It's part of the problem is that it just doesn't go anywhere for a while. Not really. Arthur goes back up as the Kraken has surfaced and is attacking the surface world.
I will say I do love that Kraken design. That's cool as hell.
It's cool design.
It's really cool. It's
a cool design. We get a fight.
A very nice fight, lovely fight. I don't know who's on art at this time. I want to say it's Nito Diaz actually. But yeah, great fight. We have Mira and the Atlanteans debating their involvement, and then fight, taking us to the end of the issue as Aquaman mentally communes with the Kraken and he begins like seeing something else inside the Kraken's mind. A city looks like he is somewhere else, and that is the end of the issue. And I swear that's all there is to talk about.
That's it. That like
and that's going to be, I think, most of our discussions for this first volume.
Here's the thing. I will say it's decent enough setup. Like I was like, okay, this is okay. The writing style. Parker's a bit dialogue heavy. You can you can kind of
Really?
see why they tapped Park.
Interesting, because
Uh,
I found, at least on reread, him to be a bit more snappy than I remembered. Especially with how action heavy a lot of these early issues are. I don't know. I found it pretty
Mainly, it was
snappy.
that divergence back to exposit what the Kraken is. I was like, oh, this is a very word kind of being a little dialogue heavy. You can see why they tapped him for Batman 66. Like,
Yeah, I will
in a
say
way, he's got that style.
I love Batman 66. He did a great job with that run. Um, yeah, great stuff. Anyway, bringing us into Aquaman number 27. Once again, catching up on that guy that
Here's the thing. I had quite a few notes for issue 26. Within the next bunch of issues for the rest of this volume, they get smaller and smaller.
I would imagine so.
Because there's
You also just like kind of like kept messaging me throughout your process of reading this, and we're like, I cannot get into it. And like me personally, I didn't have a really like a huge problem with it. It's not like great or anything. There's not a lot going on. But I don't think it's like offensive or anything.
I I just don't think it's particularly that good. Like it, it's
It's not great. No, it's just it's just kind of there, and it is a serviceable comic. Um,
I wouldn't even call it serviceable, at least until you get to the Swamp Thing issues. Because these issues are actually pretty fun. I had fun with those. That was sort of the turning point of this entire thing. But this ain't great. So Aquaman 27.
we're once again catching up with the guy that was looking for Aquaman. He's sort of like going around questioning people, trying to find him.
Here's the thing. We don't think we name him for a
They
while.
do not. I forget his name
Because
actually.
I'm trying to find it in my notes because I wrote it down because I was like, oh, his name is this. We finally named him. Um, I want to say it's Evans, but I might
Maybe
be making that up.
I don't remember honestly. I've now read ahead. I've read through like all the stuff we're doing next episode. So his
Joey,
name is
please
not.
tell me you've stopped at that point.
I've stopped. Yes, Jacob. I only read one episode ahead from this point on. That's all I do anymore. So it's not bad. It's
That's
not
what you.
bad.
Okay.
It's not a bad thing. Anyway, back to the Kraken fight. Aquaman is still struggling with
Yeah,
his
his name. Yeah,
mental
I just checked. His name is Daniel Evans. His name is
there.
Daniel Evans.
Daniel
We
Evans.
have some very fun action. Um, I like the there's a potential idea of what if sea life stopped obeying Arthur, which is hinted at here. Um, I like the art of the destruction. Uh, we do get a moment meeting back up with Dr. Shin, who's working on Triton Base.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, who, despite everything, still has good intentions, but Triton Base are they're kind of our villains of this entire run. Um,
Mhm.
kind of in a way. They're doing things. Um, there who's going to be important later, who is uh, going outside to try to unclog a vent. That's going to be important.
Mhm.
We
In the
have
middle of our Kraken fight, we get
in the
a
middle of the
flash.
action a two-page scene flashback that I think was really nice
Yeah,
with
yeah. It's Arthur and his
Arthur
dad.
and his father.
They're at
I
a
think the
house.
flashback was nice.
Yep. Yeah, it's great. Um, we get more Aquaman fighting
It's
the Kraken. Again, nice action. It's good action. There's just not a lot happening. He is able to eventually defeat the Kraken with the help of other Atlanteans who surface around this time. It falls back into the ocean. Eventually, then seemingly exploding afterwards. There's this sort of like eruption from the creature. Then after it falls back into the ocean, um, the other Atlanteans like continue to surface. Then they meet up with Aquaman. The Kraken is like is it like survived then apparently, and it is like moving. We end the issue then.
Or its mind survived somehow is the idea. Like
Yes, yeah,
issue ends with a shark attack.
yep. That's all it
That's
is. It's a weird moment. um, yeah, it's just it's
again
diving, getting about to get attacked by sharks. Um, that's all it is. Anyway,
This
uh,
is
we, we we've spent, I think, a grand total of like 8 minutes talking about these two issues. I love it. Anyway,
I mean, it's there is so little to talk about. Well, okay. And this next one, there's actually a fairly lengthy sequence that I think is actually worth discussing.
yeah, we have
Um,
Aquaman 28 here, which gives the cover of the trade here, which I think is a great cover. Actually, it's Aquaman attacked by a shark. It's lovely. Um, we open, as all of these issues have opened so far, with Evans looking for Aquaman and asking around at Amnesty Bay to find out how to get in contact with him. Um, but we're actually going to catch up with Aquaman then in the meantime, as he goes searching for the Kraken again, um, alongside
he
Mira
he
and.
finds Triton Base and gets fired upon,
Mhm.
and you know Arthur's trying to stop the sharks, and he's the hero. He brings a mauled Coombs into Triton Base. Curious if this guy is named after Jeffrey Coombs, the actor who just done a bunch of Lovecraft things, because
Oh, that's possible.
we'll
Yes,
get
since
to it.
they're yeah, yeah. Then Aquaman is put face to face with Doctor Shin again, which I think is actually, it makes for some really great character drama because they obviously didn't leave on the best of terms. But also Doctor Shin and the others on Triton Base then begin like training their weapons on Arthur, um, and so. Oh yeah. So then we then we
Really?
fla- then we flash forward to later, because I guess Arthur and Mara just left the base then. Um that's the implication. They just kind of got out of there. Yeah, so they go back to the lighthouse then. They go back to their home, and they're met by I forget her name. Officer Watson, that's right. She was back in the Jones run. She's a returning character. Um
It's
but
quite
yeah,
surprising that there's a lot of returning characters from the Johns run. Because
yeah.
yeah, now we're shifting for a bulk of this issue on a plot I didn't know I needed.
Yeah,
Of
it's like the best plot of I
Sea
think
of
the first volume.
Storms.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
outside of the Swamp Thing stuff, I think this is probably the best stuff because we just do some like Arthur and Mira domestic stuff, and it's really cool actually. Um, in going home, they find out about a reunion, a high school reunion for Arthur and his and the Amnesty Bay High School. And so Arthur's like, oh, I'm not going to go to it, and Mara convinces him to go to it. We get a
I love
flashback
I,
of
I
them.
I love the Arthur Mira dynamic. Like as Arthur is changing out of his like regal Aquaman guard, and he's like, it's like, oh, what was your schooling like? Well, we had history, chemistry, English. Oh, but you already spoke English. It's literature, really. They just call it that. Uh,
It's so good. In the middle of that, we get a great flashback to like a little Arthur and like some school kids on a beach at the time, and Arthur like using his powers early on in his childhood.
Specifically
Uh,
for the first time, having the first contact with the sea, and like a little shit trying to carve their name into this beached whale, which
mhm.
is a thing. It's a
Yeah, and so Arthur
it's
attacks the kid, rightfully so. Um, and yeah, we go back to like the present then. We get a scene with Coombs, who has had several limbs torn off, almost all of them, I dare say. Who is sort of trying to recover as well as I guess you can at Triton Base. We then go to Saturday night, when the high school reunion is, and we have a bunch of like Arthur's school friends like hanging out together, and Arthur walks in with him and Mira, and obviously everyone knows that he's Aquaman. So we get this really lovely scene actually of just Arthur trying to be a normal guy among these people, and they're all being assholes about him being Aquaman. It's really cool. I don't know. I really like that. And there's also just some great back and forth between like Arthur and Mira and a couple of the other school friends there. It's nice. I don't
I
know. It's
love
a
before that they enter, there's this one kid who's like, oh god, he's gonna come in on like a giant sea monster and be terrifying.
yeah, oh,
Um
yeah, that's right. Because the kid is like he's like worried that like Arthur holds a grudge against him for being mean to him in school, and so he thinks that like Aquaman's gonna kill him. And so we get him like nervously apologizing to him later on. It's really funny. I love it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a really lovely scene. It takes up the bulk of the rest of the issue, and it's nice. I really love it. I especially love the beach sort of campfire scene afterwards with Arthur and Mira hanging out with these guys. It's just nice. It's really really nice.
It's human. It's something like you don't entirely get in modern comics always, and it's something that they should bring back. It's very very nice. Uh,
It's one of those reasons that like I think one of my favorite things I'm reading right now is Fantastic Four by Ryan North, and like people love it because it is because like in addition to the fun big ridiculous superhero shit, it's also like they're just genuinely nice down to earth human moments among these characters. So many comics just don't take the time to like slow down and do a scene like this anymore, and it's just really appreciated when it's actually there. So. But we do end the issue then on this is Evans here.
Evans.
Yeah. Yeah, Evans
Somehow he's gotten Aquaman's trident. Like,
yes. Do we learn how do we know how that happened?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think so. It's just like he Arthur set
I
it
mean, I mean,
down
I mean,
and
I gue- I mean, I guess the yeah, I guess the idea is that like Arthur's been away, like so. I don't know. Did he like stalk Arthur's homeland? I guess that makes sense for a
that's the
reason to.
implication, but it's like
Yeah. So he just stowed
anyway,
away.
he's opening a gateway to somewhere, and that's our
Yeah.
issue cliffhanger.
Yeah. Taking us into
Oh
Aquaman
look,
number 29. So
this issue had significant discussion. I wonder if that's gonna keep. I wonder if we're gonna keep up with that.
you're funny. We do actually also open though the next issue on some Arthur Mira domestics, which again I just love seeing. Um, uh,
Because they realize, oh, the trident's gone, and they immediately find out, oh, Daniel Evans has it.
yeah, and he's opened some kind of gate by putting the trident in the stone, and so Arthur
We're
and
eventually
Mira.
going to find out this is the gate to the labyrinth, and these are all mythological monsters being free.
Mhm. Why
Because
does
I
Evans
guess
want this?
the new 52, I guess, wants to like try to make all the mythologies connect, like Greek mythology and all the other mythologies. And like it kind of works for where like the
Yeah, well,
historical
I
idea
mean,
of Atlantis comes from.
pre-52 they all kind of just naturally coexisted, it was just like, oh yeah, here these things don't actually make sense together, but as long as they like kind of like stay within their own, I guess, like different like family of comics, but here it's like it's trying for a more like connected universe, so you get things like this. But anyway, these people have gathered to watch Evans open this gate. He opens the gate, and all of these Lovecraftian horror monsters come out from it. They begin attacking the people around
You know
there.
the tone, what it feels like when this happens.
What's up?
You want to know the tone of
Oh, sure.
this
What's
to
up?
me?
Hmm.
Whoops. Like it's treated as a whoops. Here's a thing that's happened.
Yeah, sorta. I get that. We do also focus in on another creature as this is all happening, a green mermaid type character. That it sort of becomes the focus of our monsters that have broken out here. Um, but then we come back to Atlantis and we see Mira talking to the other Atlanteans here. We tease our forthcoming Swamp Thing crossover, while Aquaman has gone to catch up with Evans and these horrible monsters that have come out of this gate. And we spend the rest of our issue in a fight sequence. And let me just keep going to the pages. Yep, yeah, it's a fight. It's a fight. It's a fight.
Hercules shows up.
And Hercules is there, and that's the cliffhanger. That's all. Although also importantly, Hercules is being controlled by this the green serpent mermaid woman that I'm now forgetting the name of.
Again, don't name her until the annual.
That makes a lot of sense. Anyway, is that the issue then? I think we spent exactly like 2 minutes on that.
That that is the issue.
I mean, really, we're,
I,
we're we're just making up for the significant discussion we actually had last issue. So we had to even it out somehow.
oh yeah, we had to even it out. We had to even it out.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna say it. I think this is probably the weakest plot line, just because I do not care. One, Parker has not made me care about Evans as a character like at all. Like
Yeah, yeah. It's
he
it's almost like Parker like thinks that like if he like includes him in like one scene in every issue that like it'll be like, ooh, who is this guy? But like I think you need a little bit more than that to
Well,
like actually get
you know
someone to
what?
connect with him.
I mean, I'm going to do this. We're bringing up comics as soap opera again. When you introduce a
Mhm.
character on a soap opera, you have to make a friend, tell a joke, make a plot point happen. Evans has made a plot point happen through the most contrived mean. That is it. He's not really a character. He's kind of a plot device.
Yeah,
He's an archaeologist, and he
yeah,
sticks around for the rest of this run. Um,
yeah. Anyway, Aquaman number 30. Aquaman number 30. Yeah, here we go. Jumping into this with Triton Base. Triton Base looking into some other sea life here. Um
Experiments are
uh
happening, and on a human body. Ooh, what's happened? Doesn't matter. Does not.
Oh, oh god, your contempt for this is so funny. I think also, Jacob. This is something that I was thinking about as you were continually messaging me your disinterest in this book. Um, was that like I don't know. I feel like this is something that actually happens like way more often in comics than what you've read. Comics wise, I guess it feels to me like you've read like a ton of comics, but I guess you haven't really had just the with something you're picking up hands over to a new writer and it just kind of becomes okay and you deal with that for a while until it inevitably
It
gets handed off to
becomes
someone else like
becomes the most mediocre thing you've ever
yeah
experienced.
I guess that maybe this is just so normal to me that I don't mind it personally, this happens to
Well,
me so
I
often in
do.
things that I pick up normally, and I think, Jacob, what I'm trying to say is you just need to read more comics. So anyway, getting back into the fight though, Aquaman is being thrown into an abyss, or nope, no, it's not an abyss. It's just a slight ledge. It makes it look like an abyss, but Hercules throws Aquaman into like a lower level. Um, but then Evans goes to give Aquaman his trident back as
And it's
more
like, hey, we
horror is
can actually
unleashed.
reopen the gate with the trident. Cool. There's there's the beginnings of another plot line in this issue of Mira investigating rebel Atlanteans because partially because they're xenophobic towards her. Um,
Mhm.
uh, and that is that is also a potential plot line for here. It eventually like it leads to Tula coming in to save her, which is very fun. The main plot is just kind of go go go. We eventually put in a stone to send Hercules away.
Mhm. This, of course, only really solves the Hercules problem, and we still have other horrors and things like that roaming around out in the open. But yeah, we send Hercules away. We catch back up with Mara briefly, and Aquaman says, "Hey, I have more horrible things to deal with. How about I get some help?" And his help happens to be one Diana Prince. He calls in Wonder Woman, and that is the end of the issue, taking us into Aquaman Annual number 2, which I think possibly hot take is actually good. Um, but mostly because I think Jeff Parker actually nails the Arthur Diana dynamic, and I really enjoy reading that. Um,
Their dynamic is good. Um, it doesn't help that it's continuing a plot that I just have no investment in. Like
I guess I do love this opening
I
though. The our in media res opening here with Arthur and Diana both frozen to stone, and then flashing back to a few hours earlier as as our villainous it. This is like, so essentially we have a Medusa type figure here. She's not straight up Medusa though, is she?
No, she is not.
I forget. I legit just forget her name. Celiana? Is that it?
Yeah, Celiana.
Okay.
That's it. And
I just found it. Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if this is an actual figure from Greek mythology. Uh, Probably
I
should
think
have
she,
looked into it.
I think
Um,
she's cool and a villain on her own, though. I don't know. I don't mind her.
yeah, it's she is certainly like she's I like her vibe. She's got a fun vibe. Uh, and I'm glad that things. I like the idea of this reflection on humanity not changing. That could be an interesting plot point. Um,
Mm.
it is doesn't do a whole lot. I like that we're in Greece. It's a fun setting. Um,
Aren't we in France?
are we in France? I keep thinking
It
we're
says we're
fucking
in
in
France.
France. Yes, we're
We're
in
in France,
France.
Jacob. Read the setting bubble things. Yeah. Anyway, we're in France. It's a lovely setting. I think it looks beautiful. I'm sure it's based on a real location.
Also, the art. I want to say
Yes, this is
on this first store on most
the
of
first
this.
portion here. This is Jason Gorder and Wayne Fokker. That's this sort of opening segment here. And then the back half of it is Yvel Guichet and Alvaro Martinez. So yeah, it's cool. Or no, hang on, wait. Am I looking at the wrong thing? Oh yeah, sorry, wait.
No, you're right. You're right.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I had that right. Okay. The
They
way they have it,
it's weird
the
because
way they have it,
the
oh yeah, the way they have it organized in the collected edition is really weird. Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
weird.
because there's a
Anyway,
penciler switch at some point,
yeah.
and
Anyway, but yeah, early on, it looks really nice. I don't know, I love it. So there's some great art, especially when we start doing these early scenes with Diana and Arthur. I think they look really great in the setting. I love their sort of civilian clothes they have on. Until they eventually continue to like travel into the market here and come face to face with Celiana here. Again, just a really cool design for a villain. I love this full like 2-page spread when she like unleashes our Lovecraftian horrors on Arthur and Diana. Diana and Arthur jump into action, get some great Aquaman and Wonder Woman action against these monsters as the scene keeps going. Goes on for a while. That's a
the
lot of the
action is
issue.
nice.
It's nice
Um,
action. Yeah.
Evans has something to do. He's at least trying to put things right, which is cool. It's nice. It gives him at least a purpose. Um, Problem is, I'm gonna be honest. I could not tell you a whole lot about this character, like outside of he is an archaeologist,
Yeah, yeah.
who means well.
I just don't
He's
think like he had a strong motivation in the first place to like want to open this gate. So like I think anything that he has to do after that, like if he wants to make it right, it's like okay, well I still don't know why you did it in the first place. Um, so I don't know. He's a hard character to actually like latch onto. But anyway, Celiana is then turns Diana and Arthur to stone. Daniel Evans comes in here and is able to use this amulet thing to break Arthur and Diana from their stone trappings. And so we're able to break out. We get some more fighting. We break free even more of the. Oh, that's right. Okay, these monsters were all people that Celiana had transformed. And
yes.
so we use that amulet then to continue to transform them back into people, and we defeat Celiana. And does she? It looks like she's dying there at the end, right? That's what it looks like. But we don't
Yeah, it
actually.
looks like she's
They actually say.
dying.
They actually say what happens to her then.
No, not
Of
really.
course. Okay. Uh,
I I mean, the day is saved. Arthur and Diana are called back by Superman to the
yep.
U.S. End of this first story because there's a backup story.
There's a little backup story,
A
which is a Diana Mira team up that I actually really like.
which you know what I will say I had fun with this backup honestly. Like
It's good. It's good. It's
it's
kind of like
not
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
amazing, but it's an interesting team up for the characters. Um,
It's just them kind of like dealing with the last of the monsters that were let out by the gate and sending them back to hell, sort of. I don't know. It's another one of those things where I really latch onto it because I think Parker nails the dynamic between Mira and Diana, and I think that's just really fun to read.
Honestly, probably what probably helps the annual a little bit for me is that this is where some of the characterization of Arthur and Mira actually starts to come through properly.
Mm. Yeah,
Like, because they were side of, again, the high school reunion. they were honestly very weak through the rest of this volume.
That's fair. That's fair.
Uh,
Although, yeah, again, I just think a lot of it was just like it was like Parker. I would imagine it very much seems like Parker was like thrown into the book like really quickly and kind of had to come up with something on the fly. Um, and so like aside from those like moments of like character of like fun like character bits that were really fun to read, there's just not too much happening. And so what Parker ends up relying on then is those character interactions. And so we have our Wonder Woman team up. We have coming up next our Swamp Thing team up, and there are even more team ups in the next volume. So
I think there
it,
might be a little bit of an over reliance on team ups.
that's fair. But
Well,
also, I'll say one of the ones in next volume is fucking Martian Manhunter, and what's to complain about there? So
yeah, honestly, I think the team up too far is you're gonna hate it. It's the monkey one. Like
yeah, yeah.
I didn't
We'll talk.
dislike it, but I'm like,
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about
we'll
it.
talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Um.
Swamp Thing team up because
Yeah.
I don't know. At this point, something started to click.
Yeah,
Um,
Aquaman number 31. We have a crossover here, which it may also be a big part of the reason why Parker wasn't able to like catch up with his workload. Is because him and Charles Soule kind of like clearly worked on this together. Even though they only get like one writer credit
Part
per
of me
book
is
per issue.
wondering if this crossover entirely was Soul's idea, like,
It's very possible.
and that Parker is just working on. Okay, these are the things I need to put in
Yeah,
place
because
for.
Maelstrom is like is one giant story. And it's one big epic. Um, And
Yeah.
so yeah, he was clearly working on that. So we have our Swamp Thing crossover here. We have Aquaman number 31. First off, we get an appearance of one of the others from back in the Johns run at the start
Yeah,
here, which is
I
it's
was
really nice.
surprised. I'm like, oh, we're remembering that this is a character who exists. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's,
it's nice.
I don't think current DC has remembered this, but then again, current DC hasn't had an Aquaman run until
Yeah,
a little bit in the future.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Save us,
yeah.
Jeremy Adams, please. Yeah. Use the others also because I don't know. I also still need to read the others spin-off comic, which apparently is really good. Anyway, but yeah, we have some assholes out here then doing some swamp hunting, who get fucked up by Swamp Thing, which is just lovely to see. What's not to love there? Um, Aquaman then intervenes and tells Swamp Thing to let them go. We get a bit of a fight then between Swamp Thing and Aquaman here. Um,
And what I think is
meanwhile,
really interesting, um, what I think is really interesting is actually the pitting of our two. Let's be honest; these are DC's probably biggest protectors of the environment
mhm,
as characters. Like that's the role they play. Like Aquaman in a almost, at least in the public consciousness, is the protector of the ocean in a very corny way from pop culture osmosis, whereas
mhm.
Swamp Thing, I'd argue, because Alan Moore is in a more serious way. Like, but I really like the way they play off each other because these are two characters with essentially the same goal that fucking hate each other.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Well, it comes from this immediate disconnect that is proven by their first interaction here, which is Swamp Thing sees humans being assholes to nature and he wants to kill them. And Aquaman's reaction to that is, hey, maybe don't kill the humans. And so they come to blows over that. And it immediately sets up their sort of dynamic. It's really nice. But we're also following Mira throughout this is really Jeff Parker setting up his Maelstrom plotline. But this is also Mira still looking into the rebel Atlanteans. So there's that. It's nice. It's a cool side plot to follow here.
The side
Again,
plot, it's a side plot that actually moves. It moves forward and it builds like it takes a little bit of time here. That they eventually discover the underrealm of Atlantis, where everybody wants Mira and Aquaman dead.
mhm.
They also have giant crabs,
Yes, which
uh,
is great.
which is great.
Yeah.
Because then, back with the Swamp Thing plot, I love this idea of Arthur being able to call on crocodiles to save him. Like,
Yes.
it is great.
Yes. Because
And
they're
like it's
fighting
like
because they're fighting in Swamp Thing's domain, and so but Aquaman is still able to control the aquatic life that lives in the swamp still. So so we use our creatures here to fight Swamp Thing, but it's still Swamp Thing's realm. So he becomes part of this tree and uses his consciousness to like use that tree to fight Aquaman. There's a great like power dynamic here that Parker plays around with that I really enjoy. Um, but we do also
yeah,
end our issue.
the whole idea is that this is all based on a miscommunication of Arthur thinking that Swamp Thing is destroying a reef in the South Pacific. Um,
Mhm,
you know, and then Swamp Thing's like, "Oh, well, it's not me. Um, I don't know what it is, so I'm gonna go poke it," and he disappears.
mhm.
And that's where the plot ends. We get another tease with Triton Base, where Doctor Shin finds out that uh, Doctor Orson is grafting cells onto something, and we're seeing some horror being created.
Taking us into
Um,
the final issue of Sea of Storms, which is Swamp Thing number 32. First off, Charles Soule. You've read a little bit of Charles Soule in the past. This is not your first Charles Soule thing. Mostly
my
because I
first
had you
Charles
read.
Soule comic.
I,
Uh,
yeah, oh, it's your first Charles Soule comic, yeah, but I had you read a Charles Soule book not incredibly long ago, which was his High Republic debut. So yeah, I don't know, cool to have that kind of come back around here. Yeah. Also, I love the cover of this one. Fantastic cover by Jesus Saiz. Yeah, just I don't know, I love that. I think it's great. The image of Swamp Thing with Aquaman's trident is just really cool. We also have some great art here, also by Jesus Saiz. A lot of I love this 2-page spread early on here, and a lot of this is like narration as like Swamp Thing investigates what is attacking this
yeah,
reef here.
like a good crossover. This one is now this last issue was pretty much all of Arthur's perspective. This one is all of Swamp Thing's perspective, uh,
Mhm.
and we're trying to figure out what this thing is. Um, Swamp Thing very much thinks like, oh, this should be part of the green because it is still a plant. And he gets interrupted by Aquaman shoving a trident into his face
Yeah.
because, of course, he does. Uh, there's there's a side character here briefly who is a called Jonah, who is the avatar of something. It's not clear, but you can definitely tell we are dipping into a very different run with its own characters and its own plot that's going on. Uh,
Mhm. I don't think like
which
it detracts from the like the enjoyment of the crossover though. Like it's
no, it doesn't. It just
there's
feels a
clearly
little
more
bit like
stuff
there's a
going on, but like you don't absolutely need it. I don't think. Just like I don't think you need the rest of Sea of Storms to get that last issue of Aquaman. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But then we see more of a uh, Aquaman and Swamp Thing sort of investigating this attack on the reef. It is. I love the look of this giant plant creature that Swamp Thing ends up like creating to help fight this off. Very cool. I don't know. I love that.
I love that Arthur
Um,
uses dugongs, which are adorable. Like
yes,
they're
yes.
adorable ravenous plant eaters. Um, it's great. It's this great little thing. Soul is also Soul and Jesus Saiz get to be very creative with Swamp Thing's different forms.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I also love this great scene when Aquaman and Swamp Thing are commuting within the green. Then like plant Aquaman just looks really cool. I think that's so great. So many like creative
we
uses
get
of Swamp Thing's powers.
talking green plant dugongs, which are adorable.
Love it.
Yeah, it ends up surprised. They have to work together to save the day, both in the real world and in the green, uh,
Yeah.
which is very nice until this thing goes back to sleep, and Arthur is ready to burn this thing to the ground, and then Swamp Thing is like, "No, you don't have to do that. We're good. We're cool. It's
I
good."
solved it. I love the image of
It is the
a
most
Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing. it's the most Swamp Thing ending of like, nope, I have insane powers. Um,
Yes, I love the image of him taking up the entire reef there, with like it making up Swamp Thing's face. It's so cool. Um, but yeah, Aquaman and Swamp Thing part ways, definitely both threatening each other, and that is the end of the issue, and as such, the end of Sea of Storms. Took us about 40 minutes.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, let's jump into this with Secret Origins. No, we could just cover like 2 and 5 together. Because
yeah, yeah.
they're two kind of short stories that open up the collection.
They're the ones that
They're included mostly because they're both written by Jeff Parker still. Um,
yeah, they're here. Uh, they gave me more confidence that this book would be more worth my time. Like,
mm. Well, I think the first one especially is really really cool. We sort of get a retelling of some of the things uh that John sort of covered in his run. Like we go over like Aquaman's past with his father and Black Manta again, which I think is really cool. And then I also love the second one, the mission, which is one entirely focused on Mira and her eventual leading to her connection with Arthur. I don't know. I like that. I think it's very
I like
cool.
them both for different
Um,
reasons. I think the first one really excels. I love this scene with Arthur's high school graduation,
mhm,
and the way it plays out. And I love sort of that Arthur is bad at hiding his Atlantean heritage. Um,
mhm.
like, yet he's
That's
still.
something that Parker also definitely kind of tapped into with the whole high school reunion segment of the last volume. Um, like he just I don't know he has this interest in Arthur's past and the growing of his powers in his youth that I find really interesting. I think he does a great job of showing. Um,
I also love the art on the art on this first one is Alvaro Martinez and Raul Fernandez, and Rain Barreto doing colors. Um, Looks really vibrant, really good. I don't know. There's something about the look of this first one, especially the second one, but really the first one that I don't know. I really like. It really stands out from what the rest of the run has done.
yeah, I get
Um,
that.
and then of course the mission, like you said, focusing on Mira. I love the meet cute.
Right?
Like Parker does a really good job of setting up Mira as like, yes, I'm a warrior trained to kill, and I'm going to be shown no mercy by our enemies. All done
And
in like
yeah,
8 pages.
our enemy is also Aquaman, and Aquaman's a hunk, so can't exactly can't exactly do anything about that, I suppose. Yeah,
He
I
has
think
a
the art
winning smile, and
he does. Um, I also just forgot how much I love that early New 52. It was only really used in like Justice League Origin. The Aquaman with the sort of like necklace there that I really enjoy. I don't know, I just like that.
yes,
Um,
yes. Oh,
why didn't they should have just kept that throughout the New 52? But whatever, I don't care. I care, but I
it
don't
it
care. Whatever.
it adds a little pop of color to contrast the orange on top.
Yeah.
Um,
Of course, it also looked especially good back when uh, Jim Lee and like Alex and Claire were doing all of it. But it still looks good here. That's all I'm trying to say. But yeah, we get that, and after those two, I guess we can sort of jump into our main issues for today because Maelstrom also is a fucking thick volume. It is 9 issues. The 9 issues plus the two Secret Origins stories. So I
it
guess let's
also
loosen it.
doesn't count the first 3 issues as part of Maelstrom, like,
Yeah, yeah. Although they
which is
definitely all like sort of contribute to the same story.
yeah, but
I think also you should sometime when you get a chance, or even you can do it right now. Look up like one of like the original like release covers of the main Maelstrom story. Because they had like a specific sort of a banner that like went along the side of the issues. But they don't include it here because they just have like the clean art in the collected edition release. But yeah, the original one like made Maelstrom like sort of like a big thing. Like again, it was all that big push that DC was doing leading up to their long running books issue 40s of the New 52. So I don't know, check it out sometime. It's it's,
which
it's
is
interesting.
it's an interesting that's an interesting choice. It always makes me sad when trades don't always to recreate the full covers. Like,
Yeah. Like as much as I love clean art, of course, clean art is fantastic. But also, like there's something to be said for including the covers as they were originally presented to readers. Um, so I don't know. Anyway,
well,
we
because that's
open here.
also how they were sort of designed to be. They were designed to be viewed that way in a way.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah,
Um,
so
we have
this is
Aquaman
Aquaman
number 33.
number.
Can you tell I started taking notes on what issues we're covering because I know these numbers like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Aquaman number 32.
so
Haha. Uh, yeah.
at
Um,
Triton Base, something is sending out psychic messages through the sea, and it's escaping whatever has confined it.
yes.
And this opening sequence is like, fantastic. This is my shit. It's almost Lovecraftian in a way that we're dealing with this unstoppable force that's making people go almost insane.
Yeah.
Uh,
I also just
it's
love this.
almost
Love this.
unknowable.
This design is so fucking cool, especially the color palette of it. I fucking love it. It's so good. Yeah, it has like these like mental powers. It's making people go insane. Um, I also just love comic book villains that use black speech bubbles with white lettering. It's so cool. I don't know. There's something to really love about that.
It is
Meanwhile, we're also
great.
following. Yeah, we're also following up on Mira and her fellow Atlanteans that from her uh, B plot back in last volume. Um, but
She is being captured to be beheaded, but it's like surprise. It's Mira, and she has Atlanteans. So she kicks ass and takes names. Um,
exactly. But yeah, we were
which is
fighting.
kind of we're kind of ending the conspiracy plot like in this issue. Um, it kind of quickly wraps up because Parker realized, I've got something better to do with this book.
Yes,
Um,
that's how you know you have an actually good idea when you just sweep aside everything else going on in your book and you're like, hey, wait, let me tell this story. But
oddly enough, also a very soap opera thing to do. Be like,
absolutely, absolutely.
um, also
Yeah.
like
Go
she's
ahead.
going to feed the conspirator to Topo, which is
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Like it's horrifying but great. Then we get our first proper scene with Arthur where he gets attacked by sea life, like, and they
Yeah.
aren't listening to him.
Yeah.
And this
Um,
thing reaches out to his mind, and I don't know. The way this issue ends is genuinely quite chilling. Like,
yeah. Well, we get our villain name revealed. This is Chimera here. And yeah, I love the way he's sort of like drawn at the end here, sort of like in the shadow of this whale like creature. Very cool stuff. Leads wonderfully into the next issue, Aquaman number 33. Yeah, first off, a great cover. I love all the covers involving Chimera here. He's just a great design villain that just looks good in all every scene like with Aquaman. It's a color palette that like really matches or works nicely off of Arthur's design. It just looks great here. Anyway, opening the issue here. Yeah, Chimera is using his powers over sea life to attack Arthur. Arthur can't escape from it. Meanwhile, we're getting
a lot of the
Mira.
thing is trying to question what Arthur is. Like,
Mhm,
you're from land. How are you the king?
mhm.
Um, and that gives enough confusion for Arthur to be let go telepathically and to be found. Um, the surprise, hey, your wife and Tula have a giant sect of prisoners. Um, and it's like, oh, they're so it's like we're going to go find them, and then a sea quake happens.
Jacob, did you just refer to Mira as Arthur's wife?
Fine, Arthur's not yet wife.
Not yet wife. We did just recently read the thing where they actually properly get engaged, but that happens like a year after this came out. So, um, anyway, yeah, Seaquake happens. Arthur and Mira work to sort of fight that off. Um, Meanwhile, we catch up with Amnesty Bay, a beach on the outer edges of Amnesty Bay, as Chimera seems to emerge from the water here. Once again, just looks fantastic. Seems to like terrorize the civilians on the surface here, and as he's like confronted by police, a human man seems to spring from the inside of Chimera, literally seeing like the skin of the like fish exterior like rip open, and this human sort of like come out. He like forms clothes on himself.
We've got a reverse Lovecraft here. Instead of a man and fish, we have a fish turning into a man, and
Mhm.
I love the body horror of this thing. Like
Yeah, it's so cool. And it's not even
this,
like necessarily gory, but it is one of those things that like kind of like lets your imagination run wild, and like if you were to imagine that physically happening, it is horrifying. It's really cool.
I
I
could
love that.
imagine James Wan doing some fun shit with this villain, where he
Could you
did
imagine? Could you imagine? Oh God, would have been awesome. Um, there's also just kind of this chilling moment when he, after changing into the human and killing the police officer, he calls it camouflage with the human skin on. So good. I love that. But after another quick scene, but with Arthur and Mira, sort of cleaning up the wreckage of the Seaquake, we get more of
turns out,
Chimera.
surprise, he discovers Stephen Shin was working for Base, so he's gonna have to find Dr. Shin.
Mhm.
But it's very brief. Because then we gotta spend some time with Chimera, and it's genuinely great. Like this thing that doesn't quite remember its human existence and gets flashes of it. Uh, is senses that Arthur lived in Amnesty Bay at point,
And then also
and
comes like
then
face to face with Officer Watson. Um,
yeah, and starts attacking people with tentacles. Like
mhm.
it's great. It's great, and it's trying to like burrow its way into their minds to try to find Arthur, who is going to Boston, um,
Mhm.
where Shin
To
is on a medical ship. Um,
mhm.
he's
Um,
escaped Triton base.
yep.
I'm going to be honest. I kind of wish the confrontation took place in Amnesty Bay. Like
Uh, I
it
don't
would
mind
feel better.
separating the action like this.
I don't know. I feel like it might have been a little more thematically relevant to have it take place in Amnesty Bay, because then the rest of the action is just going to take place in Boston, um, which is I don't know. It might have felt a little more relevant because Amnesty Bay is
I
partially Arthur's
personally,
home.
yeah, I personally think Amnesty Bay has been through enough, so I'm fine with this. But yeah, we get a scene here of Shin like telling Arthur about the attack, this creature that that Triton Base was experimenting on and that broke out. And as he's telling this story, one of the crewmen on the ship begins to change, and we find out that this is Chimera. He begins going after Arthur, and that is the end of our issue here, taking us into Aquaman number 34. Another fantastic cover. Oh god, I love all these covers with Chimera. They're so fucking good. Yeah, just great stuff. But we pick up where we left off then with that. Seeing Chimera attack Arthur in front of Dr. Shin.
It
Arthur
breathes
tackles.
fire.
Yes.
It
So cool.
breathes fire. So it's like, okay, we are immediately going to take our fight to the sea. A lot of this issue is an extended action sequence, but it's such a good extended action sequence that
So
like you don't
good.
mind it.
So good.
Um,
Yeah.
because Parker at this point has mastered sort of the back and forth between Arthur and Chimera, trying to like Arthur trying to get one step ahead as Chimera is all sea life,
There's also this
and can
idea of like
use all sea life.
there's also Arthur and Chimera, like I think both trying to understand each other as they fight each other because they don't quite understand what they are yet. Which I think is just a cool idea. There's also an artist shift here. We switched over to Carlos Rodriguez, who does some really great action, especially when the fight goes underwater. I don't know, I love seeing that. He does a great job with that. Um, Looks great.
I am going to
Uh,
say I also loved a lot of the action on land later on in the issue,
yeah, yeah.
because because it's the idea of, well, Aquaman's a man of two worlds, where Chimera isn't, at least isn't
Mhm.
supposed to be.
Yeah, and it's still very much adapting to
Is
the surface whenever he's on the surface.
and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
He does understand, attack the civilians, um, and Arthur's trying to both fight and mitigate the damage, which is great. And then we get this extended sequence, as it feels like Chimera's trying to eat Arthur's brain. So we get this like 3 pages or so, all in like this gold color
Mhm.
scheme
Yeah.
of like that, you know, Chimera was formed from the Kraken. That was a past life. That it's got this stronger mind, and it's like, and it gets to Arthur's head by saying, Atlantis is rejecting his human half, which is going to be very important for the story Maelstrom, which is the next 6 issues.
Mhm.
Uh, it is. It's a great little mind battle. And then once we get out of it, like one, Arthur's massively bloodied, including like bleeding on his face, and
Oh
we just
yeah.
go right back into the action.
Yeah, yeah. So good. It's genuinely like such great action. Leading into eventually to
The,
this sort of like explosion as Arthur like kicks Chimera into this fuel tanker, blowing it up and blowing Chimera up as well. And uh we get this like last scene of sort of like cleaning up the wreckage afterwards. And you get this one sort of last tease. One of the things they say after Chimera kind of blows up is blessed the bastard right out of his skin. Because all they see afterwards is the sort of like fish skin of Chimera's like outer shell. So there's this last bit as these sort of paramedics are like finding people after the wreckage, like cleaning up from the wreckage, and they rescue this man with like red eyes who says thank you, and it's implied that it's definitely Chimera, and it's just great. It's really great
yeah,
stuff. I like that ending. It's awesome. Yeah, bring us into
it's great.
the actual Maelstrom story then, with Aquaman number 35. Great cover that makes the collected edition cover. It's so cool. The skeletal
For
hands
good. I
putting
mean,
the
there's
crown
yeah.
on Arthur's head. Oh, so good. But yeah, let's actually begin the Maelstrom story. Only if you're counting Secret Origins, only like 6 issues into the trade. That's all it is. It's fine. But yeah,
That's
we
all it
open
is.
up
I
here.
mean, let's be fair. The Secret Origins ones are only the length of like backup stories, so
Yeah, yeah. So
we
whatever.
don't
Make
we don't
a.
have a
I'm
whole
trying
lot.
to. I'm trying to exaggerate a point here, Jacob. Don't take that away from me. Um, but here we go. We open up here on once again reflecting on Arthur's childhood life, as you do. We get some opening scenes of seeing Doctor Shin again, catching up with like some other characters around here.
The
Also, we
government
do have
agents, like he's being confronted by people from Triton because he knows too much, but Amnesty Bay is essentially taking him in, and he gets brought to Arthur, and Arthur decides to show mercy and kindness, by giving him a 6 month stay in Atlantis for research.
mhm,
Um, he's also bringing Daniel Evans with him
that oh so
because
important character Daniel Evans.
I, again, if you had just set up this character slightly better, I mean, I will say Evans
All you
is
need to make him better is just tell me why he was doing things in the first place. But we don't even get that. So
he's an
whatever.
archaeologist who's just interested in Atlantis, and I'm like, okay, cool. You need a little bit of motivation. He needs to have made a friend and told a joke, and he's
Sure.
kind of making a friend here. I don't necessarily know if we'll get the joke. Um, but hey, we're there. So I do love the descent into Atlantis itself. Like, there's the
Oh,
art
it
by
looks so nice.
Pelletier.
Oh yeah.
It really depicts the majesty and the awe, which is honestly hard to do 30 plus issues into a run.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah. I think it's one of those things that
capturing.
like definitely depends on who's drawing Atlantis and like who is how a writer is like deciding to present it. I think it's something that could continually look and feel different, and I think they just do a great job with it here. Um, but yeah, let's see. Yeah, they get brought down into Atlantis. We then get a scene of Aquaman talking to some of the rebel Atlanteans down in the prison cells. Um, and
We didn't mention the the price for the conspiracy is death, but Arthur wants to be a merciful king. So Arthur starts by catapulting them up to the surface through Mira and Tula, which is very fun, and then outright tells them it's like, "Hey, I do not want to kill you all, but I found a place near Antarctica you can live, so you are all now exiled, and you can build a colony there." It's a great character beat for Arthur because
yeah,
there's a lot of uncertainty of like, well, you're supposed to be the king, and are you showing weakness? And uh this is sort of how Zebel started. So, are you
hmm
learning from the mistakes of the past or not?
yeah,
Uh
mm, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. Um, yeah, I really like that. But yeah, we then get Arthur hanging out with some more of the Atlanteans. We begin actually.
Mainly,
Oh,
but
sorry. Go ahead.
Shin and Evans are helping Arthur look for a key that's going to open some sort of prophecy and trying to understand what's going on with the uh with all of the with all the sea quakes. And some of the artifacts they find very much imply that because Arthur is half human, um, he may be responsible. Uh, and then like the idea is that Atlantis itself isn't recognizing Arthur's status as a king.
Yes, like the physical, I guess whatever like psychic consciousness exists within Atlantis, like it is not
It's
viewing
magic.
Arthur.
It's magic.
Yeah,
We're just gonna call it magic.
it's magic. Yeah,
Um,
it's true. It doesn't recognize Arthur as king, and Arthur kind of puts two and two together and decides to go visit the grave of his mother, Queen Atlanta, to find that it is empty, and that is the end of the issue. Which is such a great fucking kickoff to the whole to the actual Maelstrom story. I adore it. Um, Leading us wonderfully into Aquaman number 36. First off, promising us yet another crossover with the one and only Martian Manhunter. Gotta love him. We also open on Volko here. Uh, Arthur decides to question Volko. Well, forcefully rip him out of his cell and then question Volko. Because he wants to know if Volko knew that Atlanta at the very least wasn't in her grave, but Arthur seems to be immediately assuming means that she's still alive. Um,
yeah, yeah, because I mean, that's also what we're supposed to take as the reader, because, like, hey, if Arthur is being rejected as king of Atlantis, it's because there's should be a rightful ruler who isn't dead. Um,
yeah,
that's
um,
the implication.
yeah.
And
But
I
Volko,
really love
oh sorry, go ahead.
I love how we implement Martian Manhunter here.
Yeah,
That to make sure Volko is telling me that no, like, I saw your mother die. It was the darkest day of my life. It's like I'm telling the truth.
I do also think that's a really important beat actually too. Also that like Volko is telling the truth because that is I like that Parker doesn't try to take that away from Volko because that is like Volko's entire motivation for being the sort of conspirator and secret villain behind Throne of Atlantis. Like it is his dedication to Arthur and Atlanta's bloodline that makes him so desperate in that story. So I just like that. But yeah, also Martian Manhunter is here disguised as an Atlantis guard, reading Volko's mind and making sure he's telling the truth. And at the very least, Volko believes that Queen Atlanta is actually dead. Um,
But then
And so,
I love that Arthur tells John to just stay in his normal form
mhm,
as sort of a hey, Atlanteans need to get used to to like non-Atlanteans. Like
yeah. Oh, so good. So
and
good.
like humans can look a little Atlantean, but a Martian, no.
Yeah. I will say also, like, having reread our 2 volumes for the next episode, I think actually that's an idea that just continues to permeate the next 2 volumes, across both Cullen Bunn and Dan Abnett stuff. Um, Anyway, but yeah, we have Marsh Manhunter staying in his form. I really like that. We go to the theater then, with Volko, Mara, and everyone. The theater that supposedly Queen Atlanta died at, and we sort of
And it turns out that Atlantis itself is a psychic repository, so it can literally psychically replay events.
mhm.
Um, so we get in grayscale Atlanta's death that uh, at least according to Volko, that uh, she was returned to Atlantis. She was betrothed to a captain called Orvax. It's not a happy marriage. Uh, Orm was born, lived 12 years, and as sort of before a sort of ceremony of growing up and entering adolescence, um, Atlanta requested a historical play that Orm really liked to be performed. Uh, Volko knew that she was going to leave, had been arranging this, and then in the middle of the play, prop exploded and killed her.
Yes,
Like
presumably some kind of assassination attempt, or at least that is what uh,
it is
others.
made to look like.
Yes, and what many others believed. Um, So we then also continue to tap into the memories of this place with Martian Manhunter, who looks a little bit deeper and can see that after talking to Volko, Atlanta talked to another advisor of hers, and an advisor that pretty much agreed to hide Atlanta, keep her secret, confirming for the reader and for Aquaman, of course, that his mother is still alive and must be out there somewhere. Um, so the question is now to find out how and where and who and why and what. So as Marshman, this is also like you also see like as Marshman like is like digging deeper into this memory. It's sort of like it's a real struggle for him to like dig that far back and to like not like physically not even like into a person. Like he is digging into the memories of a place. This the psychic repository
Place begins to
of
like
the theater.
consume him, which is a really interesting idea.
Yeah. Oh, so
Because it's
cool.
how he lashes out with this idea that Arthur is a usurper and has to
Mhm.
be killed.
Yeah.
Uh, and great display of who Martian Manhunter is when he's
Martian
lost
Manhunter, look,
control.
I will say, and I believe many would agree, Martian Manhunter is just one of the strongest characters, like physically, power wise, in the entire DC universe, and people sleep on that shit all the time. So fucking powerful.
Well, let's be honest. Look. DC has this terrible problem where they don't like to give a lot of their characters books when they should.
They should. They totally should. Oh, God, there are actually a couple of really great Martian Manhunter solo books out there. Actually, the one that came immediately post Convergence, I really enjoyed. I forget who wrote that now, actually, but that was very good. Actually, we should read that someday. Anyway, entirely beside the point. Yeah. Although I say Martian Manhunter is one of the strongest characters ever, except for the one giant weakness of fire.
So
So
we have to have fire underwater,
yeah.
which is which leads to Arthur doing something stupid. Uh, Basically creating a whirlpool where he can create some fire, get Martian Manhunter scared, get him under control, get one final discussion of, hey, there was a portal that Atlanta went through. And that's where we end the issue.
Yes, taking us into Aquaman number 37, which promises monkey.
Yes,
It's
it does
monkey.
promise much.
Monkey time, Jacob. It's monkey time. Um, yeah. it sells. It's a guaranteed sell. So Gorilla Grodd is on the cover. I usually know your immediate thoughts when you saw that.
I was like, oh, we're doing another crossover. Okay. Uh,
The monkey
yeah,
sells. You can't argue with the math.
I can't argue with
Um,
that. I will say this is probably I don't want to say the weakest. I mean, it's interesting and like I like what the issue does.
I mean, this is
Um,
also the first chronological appearance of Grodd in the New 52 post Forever Evil. Which is was really just an expansion on the stuff you already read in like Guerrilla Warfare. So like it is technically following a plotline that we've already read, and so I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that he showed up here.
yeah, it's cool.
But
I,
anyway,
I I wasn't expecting it.
yeah. Um,
But yeah, so
anyway,
the whole idea is okay. We're gonna go find the portal, find the storm, uh, find the stone that'll let us to that Atlanta went through. Figure out what Maelstrom is because Maelstrom has just been this recurring where it's like, what is it? Like, is it a person? Is it a thing? Um, that's sort of the idea.
and
Arthur
so
and
we
Mira
thought,
are also interestingly they go on ahead
mhm,
through the portal and surprise, they're in Gorilla City.
yes. Again, what is not to love? It is monkey time. Um, in Gorilla City, uh, uh, we have Arthur catches up with our gorilla friends, mostly King Solivar, which is lovely to see again. Who I think actually last you knew he was dead, but if I remember correctly, if my Forever Evil timeline lines up, in the Gorilla Grodd one shot of Forever Evil, they revealed that Solivar survived the events of guerrilla warfare. So yeah. Anyway, so
I was gonna
Solivar,
say in my notes I said Solivar, who is not dead?
he's not
Like
dead.
question
Trust
mark?
me. Trust me. He's not dead. That was a previously established thing that just we just never covered. I'm sorry. I failed you. But uh, but uh, Salvar is ruling here in Gorilla City currently, and Aquaman wants to go talk to Grodd, and Grodd is currently in
Mainly
prison.
because Grodd was the one who was there when the portal opened last,
Yes,
several years ago. Grodd is currently in captivity.
I
Uh,
love the way Parker writes Arthur and Grodd's dynamic. Um,
it is fascinating.
Yeah. Because Grodd, like, I mean, he is the big monkey, but he is an extremely smart villain. Um, and so he knows that like he has things that people want. He is willing to give those things to Arthur, which is in this case is information, for a price. Grodd wants to negotiate his potential release. Release in this case means a chance to kill Aquaman. And so Aquaman is like, oh sure, fine, I can fight and beat Gorilla Grodd, grossly underestimating Grodd's power, I think. But no, he's able to beat him at least, let's say temporarily. But Grodd does give him the information he wants. Tells him that he did meet an Atlantean, which we can presumably put together is Queen Atlanta, going through this portal. Has a decent idea of what happened to her and where she went. But that's
Realizes
on
he can use the portal to escape, so tries it as the issue ends.
Yes, taking us directly into Aquaman number 38, which is so good. I love that cliffhanger and follow up here. We don't get much Grodd in this issue. Essentially, the follow up is that Grodd follows this portal and it's going to send him through to some horrible place.
The labyrinth. You know the labyrinth where all the monsters came from in the last volume.
Yeah.
Like
It's
again,
it's so
it's
good.
Parker actually seeded some of these ideas. It's just such a shame that he seeded them so poorly in Sea of Storms.
I just think
Because
it's average. It's just an average comic, Jacob. It's a perfectly average comic, and you're not used to average comics.
we'll see after I've read some more quote unquote average comics.
This is episode 80 of the podcast, might I add. Anyway,
I mean, let's
um,
let's let's be fair. Let's be fair in terms of like giving things scored numbers for for like I currently have 101 books listed that we have read. Of those 101 books, only 6 of them score a 5 or below.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. So read more average comics, Jacob.
One of them scored a 0.
Oh, I mean, it's the Long Halloween, right?
No, no, shush. You know which one it is.
Sorry, you're right. It is. You're right. It is All Star Superman.
No,
Oh,
no,
sorry. You're right. It's Blackest Night, right?
no. That was no. That didn't score 10. That got
Yes, I'm aware it's Dark Knight Strikes Again. Listen to our Dark Knight
Dark
Strikes
Knight
Again
Strikes
episode.
Again.
Actually, I would say listen to our Dark Knight Strikes Again episode, except it's one of our top 10 most listened to episodes ever. What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
I think they like
Serious.
seeing us tortured.
Seriously, what the fuck? Also, just like all of our Frank Miller episodes do really fucking well for some reason. So, Jacob, I'm not saying we have to, but I really think we should. Anyway, moving on. Grodd is left in the labyrinth, and Aquaman follows the portal alongside Mera. And Dr. Shin is investigating these portals again. And we
Shin and
actually have
Evans
a
are allowed through, and we are like, okay. Well, turns out Atlanta took a Maelstrom tablet, so no one could follow her. Uh, they somehow find potentially the one that leads to her. It's not quite sure. Uh, but Arthur and Mira are going to go on ahead because they're
yes,
in this together. I really like this.
yeah. And so we wind up in this place where there appear to
Underneath
be
the Pacific Island, which may or may not be Polynesian, uh, it's not given a name.
Mhm.
There are plenty of there are these statues that are Atlantean, and there's final gate, the Maelstrom gate,
Yes,
and Arthur rushes into things,
goes
releasing
right to
some
the
sort of
gate. Lava rock monster things.
are
Which
guarding the gate, which is
yes, they say the gate is
great.
forbidden.
I love this quest narrative that we're getting. It's like
Oh
classic
yeah,
quest narrative. It's
yeah,
very
and
fun.
also like I think like Arthur's impulsiveness there is really fascinating too because it is now the very real possibility of finding his mother who he never ever met in his life. I don't know. I love that. I love seeing it's a small character tick of just like Arthur isn't like Parker isn't like drawing attention to the fact that Arthur is acting weird and impulsive, but like you can read from that. You can just see in the way he's acting that he's very different right now. So anyway, we fight our lava rock monster things. Obviously, we
One
are
of them
water.
gets a hold of the trident, and water doesn't work like because we're trying to fight nature. So it's like,
Mhm,
right, we're just going to try to get back the trident and just get the gate open.
mhm.
So they do. They find that the gate actually opens into the sea. It is quite literally a maelstrom of the island.
Yes,
And
taking us into some other island, surrounded by water.
with a
These,
volcano.
yep. We are met by these uh, Atlantean-looking people, or people that are presumably or were at some point Atlantean. And importantly, they are being led by a woman that looks to be the one and only Queen Atlanta. And that ends the
Convinced
issue.
that Atlantis has finally sent someone to kill her and capture her.
Oh God.
It's
So
a great end of Act Two twist.
oh God, yeah. Let's get into this then. Aquaman number 39. First off, I love the Survivor Queen Atlanta design. It's so fucking cool. I don't know, I love that. I really love that. This is also that plotline I was talking about earlier, that definitely made its way into the 2018 Aquaman movie in finding Atlanta again.
Yeah, and kind of
But
surprising that they would pull from not Jeff Johns.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But no, it happens. It exists. People read Aquaman comics that aren't Jeff Johns. They exist, even if it is just another guy named Jeff. But I only just put that. I only just put that together right now. Anyway, so Arthur tries to convince Atlanta, just very openly, that he is her son. It doesn't go over well. She thinks her son is dead. And she can tell it's obviously not Orm. But yeah. We get this essentially a fight scene then between Atlanta and Aquaman and Mera, and the combined forces of Atlanta's followers that she has gained on this through the Maelstrom portal. And just a really cool fight sequence. And I love this idea that like Atlanta is so deep in her belief that like that Aquaman is not her son. I don't know. I love that. It's just a cool idea.
She is ruthless at like she outright stabs her own son and Mera, and they are overpowered.
Yeah.
They are going to be given as an offering to Karaku, which I guess is sort of the spirit of the island.
Well, they say he's the volcano god, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like so we then literally go into the volcano, and the imagery here is so fun. Like it is very fun to see this potential offering. And I love that Arthur and Mira just try to escape. Accidentally steal her advisor. I love that Mira's like, love, your mother is kind of harsh.
This is also like the only. Yeah, this is also the only person on this island that believes Arthur's story that he is Atlanta's son. Which I really like that there is someone there that that actually buys it. She makes her a fun character, this advisor. Atlanta like catches up then with Aquaman and the others, sends her forces of these mutated island animals here. I love these designs here that they start getting chased by. Very cool stuff. And at the same time as Arthur, Mera, and the advisor are running to the edge of the island here, also coming through the Maelstrom portal are the combined forces of Atlantis, proving all of Atlanta's most horrible ideas about her son. As she just
Volcano got attacks.
Yep, Volcano got attacks. That is the end of our issue, taking us into the final issue of Maelstrom. Jeff Parker's run as a whole. This is Aquaman number 40 then. So, fight scene is essentially the gist.
Chaotic fight scene is the gist.
Yes, very chaotic. Because we have Volcano.
Somehow Parker manages to tie everything together actually quite well. Like all of the ideas he had been playing with through the entire run, even with its weak start, is like we get mentions that like like the Kraken was meant to be the protector of Atlantis. It fell. It could potentially beat this god, but it can't. So it fell. So Arthur's gonna have to be the one to do it.
Daniel Evans is also here. He gets caught by the volcano god and gets a surprisingly touching death scene with Arthur in his final moments.
A much better death scene than this character deserves.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really good. We have more of this is one of those moments also where like Atlanta like sees Arthur's compassion for Daniel, and that's one of the things that like is implied to like start changing her mind about him. Very cool stuff. Love that.
I love that Atlanta ends up respecting Mera as queen because she comes to try to save the day, like putting her best.
Mera's also on the Martian Manhunter topic. Mera is also just a ridiculously powerful DC character, and Atlanta should respect her powers because she's cool as fuck. I don't know. I love her. But Mera ends up using her water bending powers essentially to make a giant water fist to punch the volcano god. So cool. It's great. We punch out the volcano god with water. Mera faints and falls into the water. Arthur sort of rescues her. And we get this really great sort of goodbye scene between Atlanta and Arthur towards the end here.
I love the lengths Arthur's trying to go to convince Atlanta that he's her son, like,
Mhm.
and like all the rationalization she has to do to be like, no, Tom was killed, my son was killed, and it's this great idea. And what it ends up showing is his ability to command sea life is what convinces her in the end. Uh, and then she is the one who is essentially going sacrifice herself essentially to let Atlantis and everyone else go through the idea that Atlantis can have a future.
Yeah.
Uh,
And also, there's this agreement at the end to not tell the population of Atlantis about Atlantis' survival and her secret society here, which I really like. I love that note that like that it is not this quest for Arthur to bring her back to Atlantis and to rule or something like that. It is her finally giving up her status as Queen of Atlantis, so that Atlantis will recognize Arthur as the king. And that's just great. I don't know. I love that. And that is sort of there's this final message from Atlanta that she leaves Arthur with, and that is where the issue ends. And as such, the collection and Jeff Parker's very short-lived run on Aquaman.
yeah,
But
I
I don't.
mean, it's what?
It's a solid year and change.
Yeah, it's a year and change.
Yeah, it's it could be longer, of course. But I think if we're talking on like short Aquaman runs that tell a single story really well, I think we're definitely going to have a lot to say about Cullen Bunn's run next time, because Cullen Bunn just tells a really tight single Aquaman story arc, whereas this is a bit looser and kind of suffers for it early on. But anyway, more to talk about next time. But that is the run, and I know you weren't like the biggest fan, but it seemed like you're really enjoying it by the end, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Overall,
it's good by
decent
the end.
enough.
Maelstrom's great. Sea of Storms, not so much.
Sea of Storms has a great Swamp Thing crossover. Fuck off.
And that's the only really solid set of issues there.
You liked the high school shit. You liked the Diana shit mostly.
I just didn't like then the rest of it, like the plot.
Keep telling yourself that, Lick Lighter. Um, anyway, I think that does it. Final thoughts.
Yeah, again, uh, solid by the end. Um, Honestly, it feels like an ending. Like it'll be curious to see where Cullen Bunn goes with his one volume, and then very interesting to see what Dan Abnett does closing the New 52 because I don't know how much he's gonna have. Really,
It's a 4-issue arc, and I think we could talk a bit more about the Rebirth issue in that than we've talked about Rebirth issues previously, because it is just straight up a part of the run that we're actually talking about next time. So yeah, we can talk about that as well. But yeah, I think yeah, I won't say too much. I think we'll save a lot of discussion about what our next two runs are like for next time. But on Jeff Parker, he did what he could, and at the end of the day, it was actually pretty damn good by the end. So yeah. Um, all right. As always, I think obviously those listening know that what we're covering next time. We're covering Exiled and Out of Darkness. Obviously, more on that next time. But in the meantime, let's do some promotions. Jacob, what do you got going on right now?
really, I just have my blog where I've been reviewing Star Trek. For
That
the
you
first
have,
time, when this comes out, I will have done Star Trek for the Voyage Home. Uh,
indeed. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, me as well. Yeah, I will have. Me and my brother will have watched and released our video on Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. And if you join our Patreon, you can get a 1 week early access to watch our thoughts on Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, which is a movie. We're also coming up on Star Trek: Next Generation soon, and I am so fucking excited for everyone to see our videos on that. We got some new character designs, even a new sort of video layout, sort of template for the videos. Looks different. I think it's very cool. So yeah, check all that out when that comes out. It's very cool. Very exciting stuff. Also, we do other fresh face things. We do fresh face one shots. Where we cover current comics that are coming out. We cover Superman by Joshua Williamson, Wonder Woman by Tom King, Batman: The Brave and the Bold by Various, because anthology, which we actually learned recently is ending soon. It has 2 issues left, which I'm kind of sad about. We're also covering Batman: The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, the end of the Long Halloween saga. We also recently finished talking about Death in the Family: Robin Lives. All 4 issues, all 4 reviews of that are out right now. You can check those out. We also cover The Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone, and me personally, on Fresh Face Solos, I cover X-Men by Jed McKay, which I am finally fully caught up on, and it makes me so happy. So check all that out. Also, RTBD is coming back very soon, so check all that out when that comes out. We have a whole sort of Clone Wars themed episode coming out. Very cool stuff. I had a great discussion about that with my brother. I think that about does it for channel things. Subscribe to the channel, of course, Blooded Studios. Any support means a lot. Wherever you're listening to us on, be sure to leave a rating and subscribe. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, any and all support is greatly appreciated. Also, Spotify can now do comments, so if you want to comment on Spotify episodes, you can try to do that, I guess. I don't know. I don't think there's really much of a way for me to interact with those comments, but it's cool to see them. I like when they come in, so keep them coming, I guess. But yeah, I think that about does it. As always, our link trees and everything will be in the description below, so you can follow us wherever you want to follow us. And I think that about does it. So thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
Jacob Licklider.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.